I'm glad this isn't the original video we were going to make, because this is exactly what we want to see from Blizzard. This week, they dropped gigantic, sweeping changes to Legion Remix, but then, just as we were finishing this video, they again responded to feedback and they've made even more improvements. So here's the journey. The first wave of changes made it substantially better. They basically cut mob HP in half, they buffed up player power, people essentially said, good, but we need more, and there were some fairly major issues with scaling, especially at the higher end. The good news is that Blizzard actually listened. So, overall then, after our testing and seeing what others are saying, it's crystal clear what's went wrong, it's crystal clear what things are now better. And overall, it's a funny little story. Legion Remix itself is great, but initially Blizzard fell into a bit of an old trap. I figured out what they originally wanted from Remix. It's clearly not what players wanted, but you know what? They've actually kind of swallowed their initial idea, and they're serving up something real good. So let's dive in. Now, I'll bet this has happened to you. You've got a dead phone battery, and then you're stuck waiting ages for slow old wireless charging to crawl along. Well, that's where today's sponsor, UGREEN's new MagFlow series, comes in and solves the problem, because this is a proper Qi 2 certified 25-watt magnetic charging power bank. It's actually fast. I mean, an iPhone 16 Pro Max gets up to 50% in just 30 minutes. The power bank magnetically snaps on with 9 newtons of force. It's got a really nice grippy finish, so, well, you can actually use your phone while it charges and it just stays there. And as for the design, it's genuinely premium, clean lines, lovely LED display showing you the exact battery percentage, and you've got a built-in USB-C cable that also doubles as a carrying strap, which is real nifty. And at 10,000 milliamp hours, that is 2.5 full iPhone charges. And it's got all the over temperature, over volt, over current, etc. features that UGREEN have got on all of their stuff, so it is damn safe. It's not only that, though. They've also got the 2-in-1 foldable. This is basically awesome for like your, well, if you're traveling, your desk setup, your nightstand. It'll handle your AirPods with the space at the back, your phone up here, and then even this little pop-out charger as an example for your Apple Watch. All awesome, and the UGREEN MagFlow series is available now on Amazon and the UGREEN website. And to get the best price, you can click the links in this video description, because the series is new and the launch discounts are live. So we're all on the same page. Legion Remix got hit with rather brutal feedback in its first wave of testing. Absolutely brutal. PTR players essentially joined forces and said that Blizzard completely missed the point of MOP Remix. And the most accurate criticism was that it felt closer to Legion Season of Discovery than Legion Remix. Some people said Legion Classic, though I think that one may be a little bit of a step too far. For what it's worth, we thought loads of the things they were trying out were real cool, but fundamentally, that feeling of it not hitting the remix vibes that we got from MOP Remix, that really did cut through. So this week, Blizzard restarted testing and they pushed emergency changes. And when I say sweeping changes, I mean it. They basically cut mob HP and damage in half, and they've significantly increased player power. They also removed the limiter from the infinite scaling trait, and Heroic World tier rewards got massively buffed. And for a tasting of this, you get 40% bonus XP across your account on your first character, plus a massive 250% boost to help characters get from level 70 to level 80 quickly. Now, I could list changes forever here, right? And it would just be boring me reading a big list. Here's the takeaway. Players are massively buffed, content is massively nerfed. And after all of this, yeah, first glance, it feels way better as a whole. But the real question is, does it actually fix Remix? Does it fix the real problems? In some ways, yes, it does. Heroic World tier is a fun test of some new simple mechanics, and now that the rewards are buffed, it actually does feel good. As a basic test of Blizzard doing harder world content, I think they're going in the right direction here. And so you understand what that feels like, here's an example. While questing normally, mobs die in a few hits after the first few hours, once you get strong. Running dungeons is not as fast as it was in MOP Remix. Let's be real, it was blazingly, insanely fast in MOP Remix, but it still is incredibly fast. The power progression feels quick, it feels snappy as you level, at least for the most part. So I've definitely had a list of complaints, some small, some large, but one overruled all of them, and that was that max level was kind of where the fun stopped. But thankfully, I get to now say was where the fun stopped. The new changes are huge. Here's what they are. The infinite trait now gives 1% versatility per rank, and they've boosted the infinite power gains by another 25%. Plus, and this truly is huge in a way most probably won't appreciate from skimming the patch notes, all phases now share an item level 740 cap. In my view, what Blizzard have done here is actually kill their baby. Let me explain. This is Blizzard's attempt at Season 4, in a way, and I do actually mean that seriously. If you're not sure what I mean by that, well, some prior expansions to World of Warcraft had a 4th season that was basically just doing some repeated content. It was fun as a little bit of filler, but nothing particularly major. This expansion, though, The War Within, is not going to have a Season 4. Essentially, with Dragonflight, Blizzard realized, you know what, with Mop Remix and a better patch cadence, people just don't need a Season 4 in the way that, of course, you kinda did back in the horrible old Shadowlands days. So, as for this story, well, instead of putting all of your power into one big grind, like with Threads and Bronze, they've made it more interesting, and that might have been a mistake. So here's how Blizzard wants you to play. You create a time runner, and you do whatever you want to level up. Maybe the Legion campaign, spam dungeons, do raids, whatever. Then, as you level, you kind of get a ball rolling, right? Once you get your first artifact ability, it feels real strong. It's not as involved as all of the gems swapping out stuff back in Mop Remix, it's not as fiddly, but it is also less customizable, at least at first. You see then, once you get higher in level, you start getting jewelry and trinkets, and those provide you with extra ranks to your artifact traits. So, you can basically pick up ones that you don't have, or boost the ones that you do. Now, the jewelry and artifact do offer some customization for your character, but it's nothing as crazy fun as the Mop Remix gem synergies, where it did feel like sort of Diablo ARPG levels of broken whenever, you just got a really cracked combination. But to Legion Remix's credit, you do hit power break points as you get all these things, and that has you feeling strong as you level over the first handful of hours, because eventually you'll hit max level and then you'll max out your artifact. And that, my friends, is when this basically becomes The War Within Season 4, in a way. You see, Blizzard's apparent intent is that then you go and start gearing. Now, of course, you did that in Mop Remix. You geared up through getting Bronze. But remember, Bronze did not matter as much as grinding out Threads. Threads were what gave you crazy amounts of every stat in Mop Remix. Now, the equivalent this time is a final artifact trait. It basically just gives you some main stat for every rank. But Blizzard don't want you getting power this way, for the most part. You see, each rank costs 50,000 infinite power. It's called Infinite Power, and it's for a tiny little bonus. And right now, 50k really isn't cheap. One player reported getting 200k an hour from farming. Basically, they were farming respawning mobs in a dungeon, which, ended up being all for a few hundred main stat. Yeah, a few hundred out of the 30k or more of main stat that you have from your gear. And here is the issue. Your scaling comes primarily from your gear, but that's not necessarily clear within the game because, well, it all feels structured for you to be caring a lot about your artifact and grinding up your infinite power. Now, the idea here is that it seems a bit closer to real World of Warcraft, where you get better gear from doing group content, which you'll blitz through because everyone's pretty strong, but not strong enough to go and solo, as you say could in parts of Mop Remix. Now, if you do grind through and get capped, then you're done until the next phase releases. Now, you can still grind Bronze for currencies, you can still grind the infinite power for smaller buffs and things, but that's basically it. And that's essentially where the mistake is. This is not a totally fresh experience like Mists of Pandaria was. That, of course, had this ARPG-style gem upgrading and ability synergy thing going on. The power curve was steep and consistent. You always felt like you were getting stronger, and by strong, I mean absurdly strong, such that even if it was a grind, the grind felt worth it. And I think all this feedback reveals what actually worked for Mop Remix. It was the combination of novelty and infinite grind, because, well, for some gamers, that infinite grind is a fairly major thing. Just look at how people play the entire ARPG genre. Legion Remix then is similar on paper, but compared to Mob Remix, it mimics World of Warcraft's progression a bit more closely, and that means it doesn't have the same novelty factor. And according to testers, the grind doesn't feel worth it. And what I think's led us to this problem is fairly simple. The Blizzard fell into the trap of making Remix more, and in the process, they've accidentally painted over what seems to have made it special. We were initially going to call this section, Is It Salvageable? I'm glad we don't have to anymore. When we first tested Legion Remix, we were genuinely worried if Blizzard could pull this off without sacrificing their design experiment. Basically, players wanted to be overpowered, Blizzard wanted something closer to a real season, and those goals seemed incompatible. But then came the second wave of changes, and honestly, they might have cracked it here. Even just the versatility on the infinite trait kinda changes everything. Now every power level you grind gives you 1% versatility along with main stat, and there will be multiplicative scaling effects there that will make you feel way more powerful as you go on. And the 25% boost to power gains means the grind will feel faster too. But the big bit is all phases sharing that eye level 740 cap. Basically, we should think about what that means. We don't have to wait until Antorus for the chance to feel real super powerful. Essentially, it won't feel, to some players, time-gated. And that's where this is kind of less of a Legion season of discovery and more of a Legion remix. I think what's core in Remix is players not feeling overly throttled by an external game schedule, and certainly while doling out the content the way that they're doing, I think probably makes sense. Handling the power scaling like this will actually match what players expect from such a feature. And basically this means the stat budget is there from day one, and that gives all of those multipliers a huge base to work with. If you want to grind and grind and grind and break the game, then yes, you basically can go into God mode. But those who just want to get strong enough so they can clear raids to farm up some bronze will be able to do that, and anyone who just wants to simply enjoy the Legion content, well, they can absolutely do that. And I think the beauty here is, while Blizzard may have needed to, in a way, kill their baby in this not being full season of discovery feeling in terms of player power, I think they haven't killed their experiment. I think they found a way to have both a structured seasonal experience with gear progression that presents an expansion to people in a sort of linear way with authentic progression, but while also having an infinite grind for the people who want just that. This is pretty damn smart. Though there are differences from Mob Remix. As an example, the gem synergies for Mob are not quite matched by the artifact system here, but with these changes, Legion Remix has went from missing the point to different, but absolutely valid and absolutely getting the point. And honestly, that is a huge win for everyone. There's been a lot of good today, but what I don't want to do is let the new changes overshadow some of the other really cool things that we absolutely need to talk about. Because what Blizzard have tested with world content here could genuinely change main World of Warcraft forever. Leveling in the heroic world tier was a little bit messy, but it was surprisingly fun, and in times it felt a bit like playing Classic. Even in a Paladin, pulling more than one mob at a time was really scary. That's novel for current World of Warcraft. And what makes it work is the massively boosted mob XP, because your time in actually fighting that one mob who feels way stronger than it really should be, well, that time is actually rewarded, not just wasted. I think that's a fundamentally cool thing that WoW hasn't really had in its world content for a long, long time. And there's definitely room in the real World of Warcraft for a more rewarding world, if they make this hard. I mean, seriously, I would rather play the heroic world tier and kill 10 mobs than kill 50 mobs regularly, but just in a complete haze. This is especially with the heroic mob affixes, because they actually ask you to pay attention. If you don't focus on what a mob's doing, you will actually die. And shockingly, that can make it feel more like a video game. Then there's the artifact traits. They're also really fun. There's a crazy one for tanks that gives you an absorb shield whenever you backstep, but it drastically slows you while you're active, and if it breaks, it goes on cooldown. So it becomes a test of just holding S for just long enough, or, using it for tank busters. Kinda neat. And there's also an arcane disc that you can catch to throw out again right away. Those things are really fun. To me, this kind of stuff proves that a more actiony style of playing WoW actually does work. It feels like the best kind of private server experiment, and all the details and design they get right are super exciting here. And what's remarkable is Blizzard took PTR feedback seriously twice, and they did it all pretty damn quickly. The first wave fixed up power, the second wave with versatility scaling and the item level cap fixed the endgame progression. They've really done a good job in finding a way to keep their seasonal experiment going while still giving people what they want. This is just smart. This is kind of the system working. Their initial aim was off. They targeted remix a bit different from what people wanted, but instead of being stubborn and thinking, no, our design is what the game needs, there was a dialogue with players, and we've now ended up in a better place. And it might not be a MOP Remix version 2, but I think it's genuinely fun in its own right. And if this is how Blizzard handles PTR testing going forward, then we are all going to win. And speaking of wins, Blizzard managed to pick up a few in how they've responded to the backlash of the midnight reveal, where basically they've just went and given us all the information in loads of detailed posts. If you want to learn about that, check out this video next.